Welcome to Press Play. Normally we bring you the latest in-games news, releases, and crossovers, but every once in a while I'll go deeper with a special series that I call Beyond the Screen. These will be full-length documentary episodes where we step back from the headlines and dive into the stories that shape gaming history, and today Beyond the Screen is called Legendary Hardware. From oscilloscopes to wood panel consoles to the modern Big Three, this is the story of the machines that define video games and the people who built them. Come on. When you think of video games, you might picture Call of Duty, Mario, or even Fortnite. But let me ask you this. What was the very first video game? Go ahead, think about it. If you said Pong, well, you're close, but not quite right. Pong was released on November 29th, 1972. The very first video game was decades earlier, on October 18th, 1958. It was called Tennis for Two, a simple dot on an oscilloscope screen, but it would change entertainment forever. Before he became known for creating what many call the world's first video game, his career followed a very different path. In the 1940s, Higginbotham worked at MIT's radiation lab on cathode ray radar displays. His elegant circuits kept images steady even as the plane pitched and rolled. That skill drew him into the Manhattan Project, where he led electronics design for the atomic bomb. He later remembered the first test with unease, saying there was, quote, about one chance in 10,000 that his gadget might not work at all, end quote. Standing among the select few who saw the Trinity blast, he realized the destructive power his work had unleashed. After the war, he turned to advocacy, co-founding the Federation of American Scientists to push for nuclear responsibility. But in 1958, as the head of Instrumentation Division at Brookhaven National Lab, he turned to something far lighter. Each year, the lab held public visitor days. Most exhibits were static and dull. Higginbotham wanted something fun and interactive, proof that science could inspire, not just intimidate. Using an analog computer and an oscilloscope, he built something brand new. Tennis for Two. It did not run on code. There was no software. Circuits simulated velocity, bounce, and gravity in real time. The oscilloscope drew the glowing ball 60 times a second. Two players used simple controllers. Twist a knob to set the angle, press a button to serve or return. The net was a static line. If the ball hit it, the circuits flipped its path. It was physics made visible, a game not born from code but from electricity and ingenuity. Others soon followed, Barty the Brain in 1950, Space War in 1962, but Higginbotham's creation is often remembered as the spark, earning him the title many still give him today, the grandfather of video games. After Tennis for Two, it would take more than clever engineering to make video game a business. It would take vision, it would take risk, it would take two men who believed games could be more than just a lab curiosity. Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney. Born in San Francisco in 1937, Dabney learned electronics in the Marine Corps before moving into California's booming tech scene. At Ampex, he mastered video circuitry, the kind that could move objects across a television screen. Dabney wasn't flashy, but he was practical. He built the coin slot mechanism, handled manufacturing, and laid the groundwork for the first commercial video games. Without him, their idea might never have passed the idea stage. Bushnell was the dreamer. Born in 1943, he grew up running the games department at a Utah amusement park, learning not just how machines worked, but how the people played them. In college, he discovered Space War and imagined a future where games lived not in labs, but in arcades and bowling alley. When he met Dabney at Ampex, it was the perfect partnership. Dabney had the circuits, Bushnell the vision. Together they would change entertainment forever. They called the first company Syzygy, but when they learned the name was taken, they borrowed a word from Bushnell's favorite game of Go. That word was Atari. Their first game wasn't Pong, it was Computer Space, inspired by Space War. Its futuristic fiberglass cabinet looked like sci-fi art, but the game was complex, the rules unclear, and players walked away confused. It sold modestly. Bushnell took one key lesson. games had to be simple, easy to learn, difficult to master. Today, it's known as Bushnell's Law. Bushnell handed engineer Al Alcorn what he thought was a training exercise: build a table tennis game. Alcorn added clever touches, the ball sped up during long rallies, and each hit made a cheerful beep. The result was Pong. 2 paddles, 1 ball, a score counter, simple, elegant, addictive. The first Pong machine was installed at Andy's Caps Tavern in Sunnydale. Days later, the bar called to complain it had broken down. Inside, the problem wasn't a malfunction, it was too many quarters crammed in the box. Word spread, soon Pong machines filled bars and bowling alleys across America. Crowds gathered, competitors scrambled to copy it. Pong transferred video game from curiosity to cultural phenomenon. Before Atari brought joysticks into homes, Magnavox quietly beat them there. In 1972, Ralph Baer, often called the father of video games, released the Magnavox Odyssey. It looked like a piece of furniture complete with wood paneling. Inside, no microchips, just clever wiring with diodes and resistors. Instead of cartridges, it used game cards to reconfigure circuits. On screen, it could draw only a few dots in a line. To spice things up, Magnavox included static clinging overlays, hockey rinks, haunted houses, ski slopes. It even introduced the first home light gun, the electronic rifle. The Odyssey sold about 350,000 units, not a runaway hit, but historic. Its patents would later fuel lawsuits worth over $100 million. Most importantly, it proved the market. Video games could live in the home. In 1976, Fairchild released the Channel F, short for Channel Fun. It was the first console powered by a microprocessor and the first with interchangeable ROM cartridges. Engineer Jerry Lawson led the team. They wrapped fragile circuit boards in sturdy plastic carts, designed innovative controllers, and even introduced the first pause button. The Channel F was ahead of its time, but with a small library and educational titles, it couldn't compete once Atari launched a flashier VCS. Sales were modest, still the cartridges concept, it pioneered what defined gaming would be for decades. In 1977, Atari launched a video computer system, otherwise known as VCS, later called the 2600. Its wood panel design and simple joystick became iconic. For the first time, arcade hits like Space Invaders could live in the living room. The 2600 didn't just sell hardware, it sold the very idea of home video game industry. Atari had conquered arcades and invaded the living room, but Bushnell had one more idea: a place where families could eat pizza, play games, and watch a singing mouse. In 1977, he opened the first Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater in San Jose. Every restaurant doubled as an arcade and a guaranteed home for Atari cabinets. Families flocked in for birthdays and weekends. Bushnell has created the first video game restaurant chain in America. Success brought copycats. By the early 80s, the market was drowning in low-quality games. After the 2600, third-party studios like Activision appeared. But by 1982, stores were stacked with rush titles. The breaking point came with Pac-Man and E.T. on the 2600. Pac-Man looked blocky and flickered constantly. Atari produced more copies than consoles, assuming every owner would buy one. Many didn't. Then E.T. rushed in just 5 weeks, became infamous for confusing gameplay. Consumers returned it in droves. Legends say millions of unsold copies were buried in the New Mexico landfill, a story proven true in 2014.
And USA Today looks at the uncovering of an old urban legend, the Atari Graveyard. E.T. video game cartridges were found in a garbage heap in New Mexico by a documentary film crew. It's been suspected for decades that Atari sent truckloads of cartridges to be burned. Many gamers call E.T. the worst video game ever.
But it wasn't just those 2 games. Shelves overflowed with poor quality titles, parents stopped trusting the industry, retailers slashing prices, investors walked away, and by 1983, North American video game revenue has collapsed by 97%. For a moment, it looked like video games might be over, but across the Pacific, a Japanese company was about to change everything. The crash nearly killed video games in America, but in Japan, a century-old company saw an opportunity: Nintendo. Founded in 1889 as a playing card maker, Nintendo dabbed in everything from Takis to instant rice before finding its stride in toys and electronics. By the 80s, it had arcade hits like Donkey Kong. In 1983, it launched a family computer, or Famicom. When it came to America, it wasn't sold as a toy. It was the Nintendo Entertainment System, styled like a VCR and packaged with game packs to prove reliability. Every box bore the gold seal of quality. In 1985, the NES launched with Super Mario Bros. It wasn't just a console, it was a rebirth of the industry. With Mario, Zelda, and Metroid, Nintendo brought back a sense of wonder, proof that games could be worlds of heroes and adventurers. While Nintendo rebuilt gaming, Sega was rising. Born in arcades with hits like Hang On and Outrun, Sega entered home consoles with the SG-1000 and Master System. In North America, they struggled, but in Europe and Brazil, sales thrived. But hardware wasn't enough. Nintendo had Mario. Sega needed a rival. The answer was Sonic the Hedgehog, fast, rebellious, and cool. In 1989, Sega launched the Genesis, sleek arcade-like and backed with aggressive ads.
GP free or college free. What Nintendo?
The battle lines were drawn. Nintendo was family-friendly and dominant. Sega was stylish and rebellious. For the first time since Pong, gaming wasn't just about playing, it was about picking sides. By the early 1990s, the stage was set. Nintendo has revived gaming, Sega was ready to fight, and what followed wasn't just competition, it was a war. In 1991, Nintendo launched the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. With sharp colors, rich sounds, and a graphic trick called Mode 7, games like F-Zero and Super Mario World amazed audiences. But Sega had a head start. The Genesis already had arcade-style speed, sports titles like Madden NFL, and the swagger of Sonic. And Sega's marketing went on the attack, loud, brash, and unforgettable. Kids weren't just buying consoles, they were picking teams, Team Mario or Team Sonic. By 1992, Sega even pulled ahead in US sales, outselling Nintendo for 4 straight holiday seasons. Globally, Nintendo held strong, but in America, the rivalry was fierce. The console war defined a generation. For the first time, games were about identity, loyalty, and bragging rights. The Sega vs. Nintendo rivalry was fierce, but it didn't last forever. By the early 2000s, Sega was bowed out of the hardware business. But the console war, they didn't just end, they just changed players. Those players were Sony, Microsoft, and don't worry, Nintendo is still in the game, but in this era that I like to call the Big Three. Now let's start off with Sony, a company that never planned to be in gaming. Sony entered gaming almost by accident. A failed partnership with Nintendo over a CD add-on turned into the PlayStation. Launched in 1994, it used CDs instead of cartridges, giving developers more room for worlds, soundtracks, and cinematic storytelling. Games like Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil, and Metal Gear Solid turned into a global hit. In the 2000s, the PlayStation 2 became the best-selling console of all time, 155 million units. With the built-in DVD player, it wasn't just a console, it was a household appliance. Then the PlayStation 3 had the rocky start with a high price tag, but it eventually delivered classics like Uncharted, The Last of Us, and The Little Big Planet. The PlayStation 4 in 2014 bounced back hard, focusing on gamers and delivering hits like God of War, Spider-Man, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Then you got today, the PlayStation 5 carries the legacy forward with lightning-fast, solid-state drives, 4K graphics, and blockbuster exclusives. Titles like Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy XVI continue Sony's dominance in cinematic gaming. From a failed partnership to selling over 500 million consoles across generations, Sony proved gaming could be cinematic, global, and cultural. Then came the challenger from Redmond, Washington, Microsoft. Microsoft entered in 2001 with the big green Xbox. Its launch game, Halo Combat Evolved, built a new gaming community, LAN parties, couch co-op, and eventually online multiplayer. In 2005, the Xbox 360 changed everything. Xbox Live went mainstream, achievements became addictive, and games like Gears of War, Halo 3, and Call of Duty 4 made online play a cultural phenomenon. The Xbox One in 2013 stumbled. Its reveal focused on TV and media instead of games, and Sony capitalized. But Microsoft pivoted, building towards something bigger: services. That vision became Game Pass, a subscription service often called the Netflix of gaming, and with the Xbox Series X and S in 2020, Microsoft focused less on console sales and more on ecosystem. Game Pass, xCloud, and crossplay across PC and Xbox. Today, Microsoft isn't just selling consoles, they're building a gaming network that spans devices, bringing players together wherever they are. Microsoft may not always win in the sales race, but the Game Pass and crossplay, they redefine what gaming access can look like. And of course, Nintendo, always playing by its own rules. Its path hasn't been the fastest or the loudest, but consistently one of the most creative. After the GameCube in 2001 came the breakout hit with the Wii in 2006, motion controls, family fun, and titles like Wii Sports turned non-gamers into players. Then came the stumble with the Wii U. Its confusing branding and weak third-party support limited its reach, but Nintendo took the lesson and pushed forward. In 2017, they hit gold again with the Switch, a hybrid console you could dock to a TV or take on the go. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Animal Crossing New Horizon, these weren't just big games, they redefined what players expected from Nintendo. Over the lifetime, the original Switch sold over 140 units, making it one of Nintendo's top-selling platforms ever. Now the Switch 2 is out, and Nintendo continues its tradition of innovation. Better display, more power, redefined controllers, all were preserving the signature Nintendo feel. The games matter, sequels, new entries, and third-party supports are increasingly filling out the library. It shows that Nintendo isn't resting on its past, it's pushing forward. Through it all, Nintendo has proven one thing: you don't have to chase trends to win, you just have to reinvent fun. Now some of you might be thinking, wait a second, aren't you forgetting one? And you would be right. But so far, we've been looking at consoles, the boxes you plug into your TV. The other pillar of gaming has been there the whole time: the personal computer. For the earliest text adventures and DOS classics, to LAN parties of the 90s, to today's esports arenas and Steam libraries bursting with indie hits, the PC has always been in the background and often in the lead. Unlike consoles, PCs don't follow generations, they evolve constantly. Faster processors, better graphics cards, new input devices. Every year, the platform reinvents itself. PC is where mods are born, where genres are experimented with, and where communities thrive. It's the platform of Doom and StarCraft, or League of Legends and Minecraft. It's where streaming and esports exploded into billion-dollar industries, and today is the home of cutting-edge VR, massive open-world RPGs, and a global community that blurs the line between players and creators. Now I know there are many kinds of different hardware in the modern day, and I wish I could talk about it, but this episode would just be too long. So yes, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft may define the console war, but the PC, it's always been there, the quiet constant, the foundation, and maybe the future. Now, I wasn't going to end this episode without talking about a modern game, released in 2023. This one comes from the legendary studio behind Fallout and The Elder Scrolls. Starfield is an action sci-fi role-playing game developed and published by Bethesda Game Studio. Set in the year 2330, humanity has pushed beyond our solar system, settling new planets and becoming a true spacefaring civilization. Without getting into spoilers, Starfield begins with a simple setup. You start as a miner descending underground in an industrial elevator and helping dig for resources. Early on, you're sent to investigate a nearby tunnel with something clearly isn't right. Gravity behaves strangely, and you encounter a mysterious object that immediately signals this story is about more than just mining. From there, the game transitions into character creation. Players can choose from 25 different backgrounds and select 3 traits out of 17 options, shaping how your character interacts with the world through dialogue, skills, and gameplay bonuses. That opening quickly establishes the central mystery of Starfield, setting you on a much larger journey without realizing where the journey ultimately leads. Things begin to escalate when the members of the Explorer Group Constellation arrives, revealing that the mining operation was never as simple as it first appeared. Shortly after, you're interrupted by pirates known as the Crimson Fleet, giving players their first real taste of combat and setting the tone for the dangers waiting beyond the stars. From there, Starfield opens up into a massive role-playing experience built around exploration, combat, and players' choices. Whether you're navigating planets, engaging in firefights, or shaping your characters through skills and dialogue, the game leans heavily into the familiar Bethesda RPG formula, just on a much larger scale. Character creation is where the role-playing really begins. The game's backgrounds and traits system allows you to define who your character is from the start, influencing dialogue options and gameplay bonuses. Some traits are mutually exclusive, meaning choosing one can lock out another. For example, selecting extrovert prevents you from choosing introvert, forcing players to make meaningful decisions about how they want to play. Other traits, such as being raised in a specific region or aligned with a particular faction, unlock unique dialogue options and can lead to better rewards when interacting with those groups, reinforcing the role-playing choices you make throughout the game. Combat in Starfield feels smooth and flexible. One thing that took me a little time to realize is that you can assign weapons and items to a hotbar, allowing you to quickly switch between melee weapons, firearms, and healing items. Once you start using the hotbar, combat becomes much more fluid and responsive, especially during faster-paced encounters. Melee weapons are fun to use, but because most enemies rely heavily on firearms, they can feel situational rather than practical. Unless you're using abilities or medical items that reduce incoming damage, closing the distance often puts you at a disadvantage. That makes melee more of a playstyle choice than a default option, especially in tougher encounters. On PC, Starfield ran smoothly overall. Even with the graphic preset set to high, performance remained stable. However, during my playtime I did experience occasional random crashes. Lowering the graphics preset helped reduce how hard the system was working and resolve the issue for me. Don't get me wrong, once I fixed that small performance issue, I really enjoyed my time with Starfield. I deliberately didn't dive too deep into exploration because the sense of discovery is something best experienced firsthand, without spoilers. So, should you press play? If you're a fan of Bethesda-style RPGs and enjoy slower, more deliberate games built around players' choices and immersion, then yes, absolutely. Digital games are everywhere now. They're fast, convenient, and you can buy and play them almost instantly. But there's a difference between owning a game and simply having access to one. When you buy a digital game, you're usually buying a license. If a game gets delisted, a storefront shuts down, or the account gets lost, that access can disappear. That's why physical media still matters to a lot of players. With a physical game, you own something tangible. You can resell it. You can lend it to a friend. You can put it on a shelf, and years from now, it'll still exist, whether that storefront or store does or not. But here's the part that confuses a lot of people and players. Even when you buy a game on a disc, the game still usually downloads. That's because modern consoles don't actually run the games from the disc anymore. Discs are much slower in modern console storage, so instead, the console copies the data from the disc, installs it to the console storage, and plays it from there. In other words, the disc proves you own the game, but the console runs it from internal storage. Another reason is size. Modern games are huge and many don't fully fit on a disc. So part of the game comes on the disc and the rest has to be downloaded, even for single player games. And then there are updates. By the time a game is manufactured and shipped, the game has already changed. Bugs get fixed, performance improves, and features get adjusted. That download makes sure you're playing the version the developers are supporting. So physical media today isn't always about having the entire game on the disc. It's about ownership, it's about preservation, and it's about having a choice. Digital is convenient, physical is tangible, and for me, that still matters. Thank you for watching today's episode of Press Play. Next week, we'll be taking a look ahead at the biggest games coming in 2026, along with our breakdown and review of the Game Awards that just happened. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep playing, keep exploring, and as always, press play.